Your sensors are correct. Do not adjust your heading. You've discovered the Omega Particle, streaming to the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Here's your host, the anchorman of the Federation, the Doctor of Dilithium. This is Jonathan Wiegand.
Welcome to the Omega Particle Podcast. I am your saddened and nostalgic host, Jonathan Wiegand, and I don't know if you've noticed, you beautiful OPP audience, that we're a little delayed in this week's episode, and there's going to be several reasons for that. Not only, I probably had some of the most craziest 2 weeks of work over the past couple weeks, and plus there was a little bit of personal stuff mixed in within the family, but nothing to really make me super chipper or like to call being on for and energetic for the podcast. But most of all, it was really saying goodbye and being emotionally connected to these characters that really made it difficult and kind of made me just procrastinate putting out this review because I knew this was the last one we were going to have. And when I mean review for Picard season 3, not of Omega Particle Podcast. Oh gosh, no, we're going strong. It's just talking about Picard and these awesome characters and possibly the last time we'll ever see them again. And I know never say never, but it's just probably might be a possibility. Fingers crossed for like a Star Trek Legacy show, which might happen. You never know. And I'm ready to get this show on the road. There's a lot of luggage with these TNG, emotional luggage, I guess you could say, Luna, with this TNG cast. And to me, overall, gosh, the ending was perfect. It was dang near perfect. And didn't I call that, Luna? Didn't I call it? Like they were saying, I said, I wish the series would end with the camera panning up and the group playing poker. And that's what we got. Like, go back, listen to episode 9 of the podcast. If you don't believe me, that's exactly what we got. And it's just like fine wine. And well, my taste in wine is elementary, I've been told. So maybe fine cheese, because I know cheese really well. So do you, Luna. We're big cheese aficionados. What is going on? Anyway, it was a perfect ending to me. And if you guys don't know, which I'm sure you do, that of course, poker scene is referencing the TNG finale, All Good Things, when Picard finally joined, the crew's poker game. And even showrunner Terry Melatus has said that the final scene was kind of a result of this 45-minute ad-libbing and just letting the cast play poker like for real. So apparently, when the Blu-ray hits, we might get an extended cut of this scene, which would be freaking perfect. I know over maybe the past 4 or 5 episodes I've been so worried, are they going to be able to land this plane? That's kind of been the analogy, because they have this great season. It's going awesome, but can they just land and get us to the review that we want? And I have to say they landed the freaking plane. They gave us the ending all of us deserved and needed, and it couldn't have been done better in my opinion. Of course, there's a couple narrative things that were nitpicky, of course, and I just feel like I've read some of the reviews. I've been on the Twitterverse, which may not be the most pleasant place in the world right now, but I just see so many Star Trek fans just crying and screaming and throwing tantrums. And it's just this isn't real Trek. It's not good. This isn't TNG. And if you guys ever go back and watch interviews and reviews of when the Next Generation came out in the late 80s, it's kind of the same argument. So it's just all cyclical, New Trek is Trek. It's all of it. I just lost half my audience. I'm just kidding. Speaking of the podcast and the audience, I want to say that we will be doing our reviews for the next new show that's coming out, Season 2 of Strange New Worlds, and that premieres on June 12th, so we're going to be adding that to our weekly repertoire and reviews. So I just hope that this season they can kind of bounce back a little bit from the first season, but I'm going to be honest, completely honest with you, Luna. I cannot shake Anson Mount as anything other than the guy from Hell on Wheels. And if you don't know, for all of those in Real Linda, Anson Mount played, like, I guess his starring role was like the lead character in this Western show called Hell on Wheels that was on AMC here in the US. And even Colin Meaney is in it. And he's like the bad guy. So Chief O'Brien's in it. So a little fun Star Trek, premonition before Anson Mount became Pike. But anyway, that's a rabbit hole. Anyway, we have a great show for you today. And of course, we're going to be reviewing The Last Generation, but also going to be talking about a couple Easter eggs and for what the future holds. Like, what projects should they switch to now? I'll give you my little 10 cents on that. So join us one last time as we wrap up the series finale for Picard. Luna, let's light this candle. What are you asking? Where does that saying come from? Well, it actually, I forget the astronaut's name, but I think it's one of like either the very first guy in space in the 60s, and then some of the Apollo missions used it. That's where they come from. Before they like went into space, he said, let's light this candle, which they're on a giant rocket ship. So the more you know, Alpha Quadrant. Anyway, getting into the review of The Last Generations, I have to say, all good things, must come to an end. Even the things we wish we wouldn't. And such is the case with Star Trek Picard Season 3, a series to that. I mean, to put it nicely, really struggled to find its identity, its pacing, and its overall purpose, the first two seasons. But in the third season, it just kind of finally embraced what it was trying to run away from. You remember the first couple years of Picard, they kept just battering us over the head. This isn't a TNG reunion. This isn't a TNG reunion. And then now we get a TNG reunion and it's everything we've ever wanted. So they were running from their purpose. They're running from their calling. And season 3, it mashes up like peanut butter and jelly, and it's beautiful. And I was wishing, the story could just give me a couple more episodes, one more episodes, just spend a little bit more time with these people. And then we didn't really have to say goodbye to, the TNG crew. They've grown a lot older. They're like a lot more fascinating now. They've developed more. And it was really tough to say goodbye, which I mentioned like in the intro of this episode. But I have to say, if you as a Star Trek fan have not been enjoying, the fan service that's been kind of definitely purposeful, definitely doing this on purpose, then you're not going to like this finale at all. You're not going to like how they wrapped it up. And to me, this finale aimed itself exactly like a laser from the moon. It's an Austin Powers reference, okay, Luna? Like a laser from the moon directly at the fans' hearts of anyone who loved The Next Generation and its characters. Yeah, there's a couple like parts, hiccups and shortcuts, but overall, it really stuck the landing. And in every single way that mattered, in every single way that I wanted it to, it stuck the landing like Simone Biles in the 2012 Olympics. We're going deep on our references here today. Even the very end of it, with the final confrontation with the Borg and the assimilated Starfleet Armada, it's just like a pure video game. It's amazing, like graphics, and you have this kind of split. You have the Titan kind of defending, giving Picard time, and it's a very kind of 90s style, movie action sequence, which didn't really give us any purpose than to, make us happy. And I know there's some people that have made the comparison between Return of the Jedi and like the final sequence with Data flying the ship through the cube and then blowing it up and then getting out and just in time. I'm like, okay, that's like a very thin, cheap callback or reference to Return of the Jedi. Okay. It was just so, Seven's speech to the crew, and then you got Beverly Crusher, who's like tactical now, and they can be like beep, 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 and it's just, and plus like Worf going back and saying like, oh, I don't fight with phasers, I fight with swords because they're just more fun. And it's, to me, some of the best moments of the seasons are these funny, emotional ones that are grounded in these decades-long relationships that we have with this crew, that we have with these characters. This is really hard to do that. So I have to give hats off to Terry Meladas, to the crew, to the writers, because you couldn't have done this if you were a corporate board person or if you weren't a fan of TNG in any single way. So it's definitely coming from a place of love and appreciation that definitely the fans can relate to. And I mean, there was even the moment with, Picard is choking up with his inability, to kind of talk to number one and saying, hey, what you've meant to me over the years and their lives together. Riker's kind of goodbye to Deanna. And then Geordi being in wonder of Data's emotions, and how he's finally experiencing things. These are all moments that carry extreme amount of weight, like that NBC show, The Biggest Loser, because we have these relationships to build on. We have these hours and these seasons to show this is what Data's always wanted. So again, they did such a good job, because if you don't have that connection, it may not mean anything to you. Like if I show this to my beautiful wife, it might be like, okay, well, why do I care? That's not funny, or this doesn't make sense. And it's just because there's no time in the years, and it's okay, I'm rambling, but it's hard not to. I just be honest, it's very hard not to. And again, this is very difficult for me not to ramble and to stick on script, because I can talk about the TNG crew forever. Kind of going back to the narrative purpose, the showrunners and the writers really made it feel like, the conclusion and how they get there, they tie up in a general sort of way, but let's not get too specific. We don't really have to do that. But definitely a lot better than previous seasons finales. I will say that. I just love seeing Picard, risk becoming Locutus again in order to save his son. That's the stuff that Patrick Stewart lives to play, and seeing him face off with the Borg Queen one last time was probably what the series was always destined to. And we'll cover this on our Easter egg segment, talking about we get an answer to what happened in Voyager's Endgame episode, which was that series finale, and how the Borg semi-survived. I guess it didn't survive, but we'll cover that in the Easter egg section. But we see a great fatherhood theme that we've kind of seen throughout this whole show and this whole season. So it's awesome to kind of wrap it all together. Picard make the ultimate sacrifice, and it's like, no, even if it's just me and you, band, we're going to be in this collective together. And I did kind of like how they showed the collective, which I was always curious about how that looked, but maybe that's a little bit different. And I mean, we didn't really get any specifics about Crusher's assimilation, his outfit change. He's suddenly able to throw off the Borg control. And does it really work? Not really, not entirely, but the season finale or series finale really leans, into the cheesy heart of the moment, and Stewart and Ed Spielers, they kind of sell the heck out of it. They really acted their way out of a paper bag on this one, and I was really impressed. And John Luke's decision to finally choose his son over everything he's always put before, it was awesome. You see this kind of cap on his character development now. And speaking of the cheesy moments, we did have some tense moments as well on the flip side of that. To the episode's credit, it did feature a few, but we all knew that, nothing was really awful going to happen. But did we? I will say there was a couple moments I was genuinely nervous about Riker and Worf. I'm like, are they really not going to be able to come back and tell your loved ones how much you mean to them, kind of treatment in the Borg cube? And Riker, I think, did it twice. So I'm glad this isn't this bleak, gritty sci-fi drama like Severance on Apple TV, or some of these other great sci-fi dramas right now. This is kind of a warm, fuzzy affirmation that we have a future, that love is still humanity's greatest achievement, and it was nice to see that. So perhaps the most expected part, or to me, I've talked to a lot of fans out there. Thank you guys for your comments and questions and kind of freaking out and nerding with you over the past week or so, is that a lot of people were kind of surprised, that how the Picard final really kind of just wrapped up the Borg invasion. They just kind of like got it over pretty quick, and the episode clocks in at over an hour, but the last quarter of the episode is basically devoted to giving us the last few moments, favorite characters, and determining what's next for them, and what to me felt like a setup of a spinoff. Like they set the show up for a spinoff. They set up the Enterprise spinoff. They set up a Legacy spinoff. That's how it felt to me. They wouldn't, for example, not allowing Seven to say her catchphrase and stuff like that. I'm like, they're setting us up. Like they are putting on a silver plate and say, come get it. And we're like, seconds, please, because that's what we want. I know they're kind of being tongue-in-cheek, like, well, nothing is coming out just yet. Nothing is confirmed. And we're like, we know what you have planned, because we know how much money and how, it got 98% on Rotten Tomatoes season 3, so they are going to be churning out this chugga cash train for more movies and series. I guarantee it. But going back to the fleet and our beloved Legacy characters, so we see Geordi kind of return to the Fleet Museum with the Enterprise D, and she's kind of given this centerpiece, I guess you could say, among the other classic Starfleet ships. And then you have like Data is going to Counselor Troy and kind of talking to her over for hours and hours and hours in all these sessions. And then the Rikers, I guess they're the Rikers, are going on their first vacation since, their son's illness. So that's great. You see them healing and bonding. And then I love the party scene at 10 Forward, them getting like plastered together, playing poker, quoting Julius Caesar. It's just like the good old freaking days. Just reminded us, all sorts of these relationships that once again will keep going in the Star Trek lore, that they will keep going well after the series final credits roll. And in a lot of, and I've kind of mentioned this before, in a lot of ways, the finale doesn't really feel like a definitive ending as it does, to be continued conclusion. But it's incredibly heartfelt and lovely, and maybe the best thing any of us could ever ask for the series conclusion. If the fact is that, Star Trek Picard may be over, but there's anything to go by, like I said, that cash train's coming, and we're going to get some awesome shows in the future. Especially with, the freaking the end credit scene. Jack Crusher, ends up in Starfleet, which I was kind of surprised by, but he ends up in Starfleet. He's on the new Enterprise G, Enterprise F, okay, with Captain Seven, and Rafi's her first officer, but, okay, they dated, and now she's her first officer. I'm sure there's no, direct, conflict of interest there. But I guess anything goes, when you save the freaking universe. So I guess they'll let you have that one. But it's just to me, that's going to be a show. They brought back John DeLance as Q, and is the predictable outerwear that we expect of Q. And this kind of just shows that season 2 didn't mean anything. That his death at season 2, sorry for spoilers, but apparently they don't mean anything, because his response of, oh, my time is not as linear as yours. I'm like, okay, so we're just going to completely ignore season 2 then. That took all the emotional weight out of it. I never have to watch it again. Thank you. I don't hate it. I don't hate that they brought him back, as long as we get more shows. If they just never mentioned it ever again, I'd be like, oh, well, that went nowhere. That's a dead end on a country road. Thanks a lot. Yes, even, the 1 year time jump, and we kind of get to see the happy families, with John, Luke, and Jack and Beverly, kind of just sped us past, all that emotional work and therapy sessions, just took them just straight to the happy place, that took all that work to get them there to that point. And the fact of the matter is, I've seen a couple memes about this. There's no Laris. Ever. she's on some bar hanging out waiting for him. That's it. Sorry, Laris. That's it, Laris? Yeah. I'm not drinking. And I guess the Picard Crusher romance front, that's the front and center. That's what we're going with. And I guess Laris is an afterthought. But, that's perfectly fine. However, I think we will get a Star Trek Legacy show. I think we'll get an Enterprise show. I think we're going to get a couple more things. I mean, after all, you never know what might happen. We've said for, decades, we may never see these people again, and boom, we get this beautiful Monet of a season. So who knows? Maybe the Next Generation crew's time isn't over yet, but I'm grateful this is how, if they had to go out, they go out like this. And, we all get to be a part of it. Now the big question, what now? So I've said before, we have no official word on Legacy or an Enterprise show, but what now? I think PP Plus, that's what I call Paramount Plus, PP Plus, they need to create a DS9 movie right now. With the announcement of the Picard series finale, Paramount PP Plus has begun producing like original Star Trek movies. And I think a DS9 Reunion movie should be at the top of the potential projects. We got the announcement that Section 31 movie would be the first original movie for the streaming service. And this allows a plethora and a wide open door to so many stories, just one-off great stories in Star Trek that, we can start seeing on Paramount Plus. Now, it was supposed to be a series, but then after, obviously, the success of let me see if I can get this title right. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, she won Best Actress for it as an Oscar, so obviously she's very demanding. Her schedule is very demanding, should I say, not her, but her schedule is very demanding. So who knows, maybe this was just a trade-off to be like, look, we can't do a whole series, but we can do a movie. And that PP Plus was like, sure, we'll do that. I mean, it just kind of fits, you have the darker tone and the morally complex storylines of DS9. That revival could just sit and slip in so comfortably alongside just morally complex Section 31 movie and even the moral complexities that Picard raised, during the Dominion War. I just feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, and I've said this before, that this quote-unquote new Trek, we have just an impressive array of these legacy characters in recent years. The characters from DS9 have largely been absent. I mean, there's been a couple exceptions. There hasn't been anything on the level of course, the TNG crew, Voyager's stealth sequel, Star Trek Prodigy. While DS9's ending was more definitive than its Star Trek other colleagues, there's still a huge narrative potential in revisiting, the crew of that Terok Nor. And it's so strange that the franchise has just largely shielded away from doing it. To me, just thinking out loud, there's been such a positive response to Star Trek Picard Season 3. It introduced people to changelings again and exploration of the Dominion War and the aftermath of it. It just is a reignited interest in DS9. So now let's build upon that. So we have, of course, like I said, Michael Dorn, Worf, he was a regular character on DS9. It was odd that none of his crewmates appeared alongside him when Starfleet was dealing with changelings. We didn't see Kira Nerys, Jadzia Dax. We didn't see anything, and that's just so surprising. And I just think this was the best time to kind of bring one of those back seamlessly and just would fit so perfectly. I mean, to me, I think the Dominion and the changelings are still a threat in the Star Trek's 25th century. And I know, you had this rogue leader of that Captain Vadic was for the evolved changelings. It was still clear there's a lot of scars and a lot of areas that need to be healed left over from the Dominion War. And I just feel like, they could have set up future conflicts, because of this whole new style and new evolution of changelings. So, and many people may be wondering, why, Jonathan, has there been no love for DS9? This season 3 would have been perfect time to swoop in, sit next to him, and I think we have a reason. So speaking at San Diego Comic-Con in 2022, Kurtzman said that he would have to be very careful with their approach, and that Captain Benjamin Sisko, played by the wonderful Avery Brooks, was crucial. Brooks' apparent reluctance to return to Star Trek could be one of the big stumbling blocks for DS9's return. I understand the reluctance and the hesitancy to make a DS9 revival or bring in DS9 without Sisko. However, you could still do it. You could make a film focused on, how Jake Sisko coped with the disappearance of his father, or more realistically, a film about Dr. Bashir and his attempts to learn more about Section 31 and almost like a spy thriller type of thing. I don't know. I think there's a lot of different ways you could bring and mold and intertwine these two Section 31 DS9 and bring these series back into the franchise fold. In our last segment for today's episode, let's get into some wonderful Easter eggs. And I think there's only 3 or 4 that we're going to cover today. But the first one is so great and so on the nose. During the last episode, when Picard says, "What began over 35 years ago ends tonight." And this refers, to the fact that the events of the Best of Both Worlds happened in 2366, which would be exactly 35 years before the present of Picard Season 3 in 2401. However, in real life, it's been 36 years since the debut of The Next Generation in 1987, so that number kind of connects to our world too. So it's not crazy. So that was a little fun fact. Easter egg number 2 that I really liked is that Picard references the Unimatrix array. And this concept comes from Voyager, specifically the episode 2-parter Scorpion, which introduced 7 of 9 by this designation, 7 of 9 tertiary adjunct of Unimatrix 01. And so this Borg Unimatrix was simply a specific division of the Hive. So the Voyager episode Unimatrix 0 established a secret part of the collective where the Borg tried to hide their minds from the Queen, and of course it didn't last. So it's cool. He referenced, hey, this Unimatrix array, that's what Unimatrix array is and how it connects to Voyager. And of course, speaking on the Borg, there's one very, very relevant world-building detail that is dropped by the Borg Queen when she says, "Up until recently, there was no collective left." This makes it clear we're dealing with the Prime Universe Collective defeated by Janeway in Voyager's Endgame. This is also why the Queen is voiced by Alice Cridge and why the Borg needed the help of the Changelings all season long. And just a refresher, the Borg Queen was basically sucking the energy from all the drones, until they literally were nothing. So that's really gross. So that has been our review, insights, and I think everything in between for our series finale of Picard. Luna, let's wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us, on this journey of finishing Season 3 of Picard. And I have to say, I'm super sentimental. I really wanted to put this off because I did want to make it and kind of cap, the season. But I've really enjoyed doing the reviews and, having my routine of the episode prep through the week, and talking to fans every week. And I just really enjoyed it. So it's definitely coming from a place of thankfulness and gratitude. But fear not, we're going to be back this week on Thursday. I think that's the new schedule, right, Luna? Just every Thursday releasing amazing content and continuing our excursion into podcasting excellence. And again, thank you for listening. And I can't wait to meet with you again. And until next time, second start at the right, straight on till morning.